The rain poured down on the small town of Ravenswood like a relentless curtain, casting a gloomy shadow over its residents. Retired spy Jack Harris stood under the awning of the local diner, a cup of coffee warming his hands as he watched the storm. His eyes, a piercing blue, seemed to bore into the souls of those who crossed his path. A trait that had served him well in his former life. But now, they seemed to hold a deep sadness, a weight that threatened to consume him. As he stood there, lost in thought, Jack overheard a hushed conversation between two men sitting in the diner's back booth. Their words were laced with an air of urgency, and Jack's trained ears picked up on the mention of a name, Emily Wilson. A name that sent a shiver down his spine. Emily had been a fellow operative, a friend, and a lover. Her death had been a devastating blow, one that Jack had never fully recovered from. The men's conversation was brief, but it was enough to pique Jack's interest. He pushed open the diner's door and slid into the booth. Across from them, "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice low and even. The men exchanged a nervous glance, but Jack's presence was too intimidating to refuse. They introduced themselves as local businessmen. But Jack knew better. He could smell the stench of deceit emanating from them. As they chatted, Jack learned that Emily's death was not the accident he had been led to believe. It was a murder, orchestrated by a powerful organization that had infiltrated Ravenswood. The men were mere pawns, but they knew more than they were letting on. Jack's grip on his coffee cup tightened, his mind racing with the implications. He had to know more. That night, Jack began to dig into the town's secrets, following a trail of clues that led him deeper into the heart of Ravenswood. He discovered that the town was a hub for human trafficking, and Emily had stumbled upon the operation. Her death was a warning, a message to anyone who dared to interfere. Jack's anger simmered, a fire that threatened to consume him. As he delved deeper, Jack encountered more and more of the town's residents who seemed to be hiding something. The streets were narrow and winding, the houses looming like sentinels. Every step felt like a trap, every conversation a potential threat. Jack's instincts were on high alert, his senses heightened as he navigated the treacherous landscape. But Jack was not alone. He began to experience strange visions, echoes of Emily's presence. At first, he thought it was just his mind playing tricks on him. But soon he realized that something more sinister was at play. The visions grew stronger, more vivid, until Jack was convinced that Emily was trying to communicate with him. One night, Jack found himself standing in front of the old warehouse on the outskirts of town. The building loomed before him, its windows like empty eyes staring back. Jack knew that this was the epicenter of the human trafficking operation. The place where Emily had met her end. He steeled himself, his heart pounding in his chest, and stepped inside. The warehouse was a labyrinth of darkness, the air thick with the stench of decay. Jack moved cautiously, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. Suddenly, he was confronted by a figure, tall and imposing. Jack recognized the man as Victor, the mastermind behind the operation. Victor sneered at Jack, his eyes glinting with malice. The battle was fierce, the two men clashing in a flurry of punches and kicks. Jack's training kicked in, but Victor was a formidable opponent. The fight raged on, the outcome hanging in the balance. Just when it seemed that Jack was gaining the upper hand, Victor landed a lucky blow, sending Jack crashing to the ground. As Jack lay there, dazed and helpless, he felt Emily's presence surround him. It was a warm, comforting sensation, a sense of peace that he had not felt in years. Jack realized that he had been given a second chance, a chance to make things right. With newfound strength, Jack launched himself at Victor, determined to bring him down. The outcome was never in doubt. Jack's rage and grief fueled his attack, and Victor was no match for him. As the man lay defeated at his feet, Jack felt a sense of closure wash over him. He had finally found the truth, and in doing so, had found peace. As Jack walked out of the warehouse, the rain-soaked streets of Ravenswood seemed to stretch out before him like a new beginning. The darkness still lingered, but Jack knew that he was no longer alone. Emily's presence was still with him, a guiding light that would lead him through the shadows. Jack took a deep breath, the cool air filling his lungs, and smiled. He was finally free.